Heyo! I have another story for you. Sorry for the weird intros. They're just going to keep getting weirder. More entertaining that way. Today's book we have The Invisible Boy by Trudy Ludwig and illustrated by Patrice Barton. This is a story that I really like to do with my students on the first day of school, just to remind them that I don't always see you, but I do see you. May not see you physically because you don't take up as much space as some other kids. However, I still know you, still love you. All right, without further ado, The Invisible Boy. Can you see Brian? The Invisible Boy. Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside way too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first, then the best friends of the best players, then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still hoping and waiting. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever! I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table, doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings, space aliens locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student, to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made their minds up yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. It's bulgogi. What? Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecue beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? There's no way I'm eat boogery. And the kids laugh. All of them, that is, except for Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin. I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing. You're Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin! Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in 2 or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads towards Justin. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Mrs. Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio. Let's let him work with us. Okay, I guess. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, said Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. The crooked story we made up on the spot. Oh my goodness. It's lunchtime again. Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing. Everyone else but him. Brian! He hears someone shout, Hey, Brian, over here! Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods and makes room for him at the table. Cookie? Thanks. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. That was The Invisible Boy, written by Trudy Ludwig and Patrice Barton, illustrated by Patrice Barton. At the back of the book, teachers, there are different sorts of questions for discussion that you can introduce with your class if you just happen to have the book. And if you do not, I believe they're somewhere on the internet. There's also some recommended reading for both adults and children about the dangers of bullying. Because these two ladies that wrote this book are people who've done a lot of work with bullying. Also at the end of the book, you can kind of see all the different children working together. So yeah, that was The Invisible Boy. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you can understand. Now, sometimes there are some kids who take up lots of space, and sometimes there are kids who don't take up very much space. Understand where you are on that spectrum, and understand that we do see you, and you are not invisible, and you are loved. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again.